In this video, I'll be talking about professional multi-camera setups for live streaming. I'll go into detail about camera angles, types of cameras, and finally add some technical considerations. Thanks for checking out Church Media Pro. My name is Aaron Ward. If you're a church media pro like myself, a media volunteer at your church, or just getting started in the world of church media, make sure to introduce yourself in the comments and click the subscribe button to be part of the Church Media Pro community. Many churches are adding live stream technology as a way to reach outside their walls, and though a single camera will do the job, a multi-camera setup will enhance the online experience by helping immerse your viewers and connect them with your church's culture. If you're already live streaming with one camera, it's likely HD and likely manned by a volunteer. And if not, I suggest this is where you start. The focus of your main camera should always be the person currently leading your service, so it's always best to have a camera operated by a human so you can track with them, and I recommend a medium to close shot, either knees to head or waist to head. Though it's nice to have the capability to zoom and focus, if your camera position is in the center of your room and your stage runs parallel to your audience, you can usually get away with setting the zoom and focus before service and just ask the volunteer running the camera to stick with who's ever leading. When you start adding multiple cameras, it will be tempting to change up the focal length or the zoom factor of your main camera to get a wide shot. But the best practice is to keep it rock solid so you always have something to cut to when your more creative alternative angles aren't quite right. I know this episode is about multiple cameras, and we've only talked about one, but I can't emphasize enough the importance that you start with a solid, human-operated main camera that gives you a detailed medium close-up. The ideal second camera will give the viewer more context, and the best way to do that is to have a wider shot. The simplest way to do this is to add a static or unmanned camera right next to your main camera that's a bit wider. Think at least head to toe, though getting even wider can give your live stream viewers a sense that they're in the room with the rest of your congregation. Though a static camera is easy, feel free to get creative with the second camera. At our church, our camera 2 is a pan-tilt zoom or Ptz camera that is placed perpendicular to the stage. We're able to go from a medium wide of the vocal leaders to a huge wide that encompasses the entire auditorium. If you go so far to add a third camera, incorporate tighter detail shots. Static cameras mounted to your drums or keyboard, or a second man camera with a much longer lens that can get a great close-up of your lead guitar or a stage prop that your pastor is using for an illustration. Okay, so let's talk about camera types. Let me start by saying that you want to consider different camera types for different usage. Though it's nice to have a similar visual quality between camera angles, it's not necessary, nor is it always practical, to have the same camera for each angle. Let's start with your main camera. This is the camera that you're going to show your live audience the most, so I recommend investing in it. At my church, we use a Canon C100 MkII for the following reasons. First, the image is more cinematic due to its larger sensor, and you can up the ISO or gain without really degrading the quality of the image, which is especially useful in darker spaces, or if you want to set a high f-stop so your volunteers don't have to worry about constantly changing focus. The C100 MkII also has XLR audio inputs with manual gain control and clean HDMI out that embeds audio, so you won't need a separate audio source. The Canon C100, as well as many cinema-type cameras available, also have interchangeable lens mounts that give you the flexibility to use different lenses. Depending on the distance you have from your stage to the camera position, I recommend either the Canon L 70-200 or the Canon L 24-105 mm. Again, on your main camera, you're looking for a medium close-up that can get at least a minimum knees to head. For your second camera, you can get a little bit more creative, or you can be budget conscious. A great option for a static wide camera is the Blackmagic Micro Studio 4K. This inexpensive camera has a great image, can output over HDMI or SDI, and also has an interchangeable lens mount. I recommend finding a wide lens in the 14 to 24 mm range that has a very low f-stop. Micro Four Thirds lenses from Voigtlander are great for this application. A more creative option are Ptz cameras that can be controlled with a joystick near your switcher. The camera we use at my church is a Sony SRG 300 SE Ptz. The SE version has an SDI out, which is what I recommend for long cable runs instead of HDMI. It also has a network connection that connects easily to the Sony RM IP10. a remote control which you can connect to multiple other Sony PTZs if you want to add a third camera or multiples later. Another great option for a second or third camera is a GoPro. GoPros naturally have a wide angle of view, but can also be mounted on your drums or keyboard for a close-up. I do recommend you adapt the HDMI output to an SDI via Blackmagic HDMI to SDI converter if the camera is over 50 feet from your switcher. Okay, so before you purchase multiple cameras, the biggest technical consideration is that they all have the capability to use an identical frame rate and resolution. This is especially critical when using SDI camera outputs. HDMI inputs on switchers like the Blackmagic Atem are a little more forgiving, but in general, you want an identical resolution, typically 1080p, 1080i, or 720p, across all cameras if you want them to work simultaneously with your switcher. Other than resolution, frame rate, and cable distance, there really aren't any other special considerations necessary, especially since most modern switchers have frame sync on each input. Live streaming with multiple cameras will certainly give your online community a more immersive experience, and it will likely at least keep you on par with, if not set you apart from, other online church experiences in your community. Don't underestimate the power of a well-produced live stream to be the first touch point for your church. For the first time in history, it's possible for those who wouldn't likely step foot in your church to get a chance to see and hear what it's like without leaving their home. Links to all the gear I talk about in this video are in the description, and please don't hesitate to ask questions in the comments. I'm here to help you and your team become better church media pros. Before clicking to the next video, please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with new Church Media Pro videos. Also, make sure to reach out next time your church is remodeling or upgrading media gear and ask about my headache and budget savings consultation guarantee. Thanks for watching.